Welcome back to day 2, where we're talking about literal versus figurative language. Let's start by refreshing what we learned yesterday. Yesterday, we talked about how literal means that you're saying what you actually mean. So if you say something literally happened, you mean that that really did happen. The opposite of that is figurative. Figurative means you don't mean exactly what you say, but you're trying to show an idea. Remember our example was the snowman who says, I'm so hot, I'm melting. He's actually melting. It's literal. Or a person who says, it's so hot, I'm melting. That's figurative. People don't melt. I'm just trying to show how uncomfortably hot it is. Today, I want to talk about why we should be looking for figurative language. And figurative language helps set the tone. So this might be a new word for some of you. What does it mean when we say tone? Now, you may have heard the word tone about music. We have different tones or different pitches. In writing, when we're talking about tone, we're talking about what emotion the author is creating when they write. So I had this picture from Inside Out. These could all be different tones. You could write with a tone that's sad. So if you're using sad figurative language, you might be writing with a tone that's joyful. You might write with one that's fearful, right? If you've got scary stuff. You might write one that sounds disgusted, and you might also see some that are angry. So we're going to talk today about how you can figure out how does the author want the story to sound? What figurative language helps you see that? So the tone of the story refers to the feelings the author is showing in the story. Some examples of tone are, well, we could have happy, like our picture before. Ruth was so grateful to be a part of the soccer team that she grinned like a lemur. Can't you picture how happy she must look? The author is setting a happy tone. What about this one? Sad. The dead trees in the backyard cried in the wind. Ooh, that was personification. Trees can't actually cry, but by describing them as crying, it kind of makes me feel sad. I feel like the author's trying to show things are sad right now. It's kind of like your example last week about the window that cried broken glass. The author wanted you to see that that was a sad scene for the character. What if you're trying to show it's silly? My sister hopped around the living room like popcorn in a popper. All she needed was a little melted butter. That's a simile, right? Like popcorn in a popper. Can you picture how the author's showing that that looks silly? That a character is popping like popcorn? Ooh, what about this one? Angry. His glare burned a hole through me, and I wished I had never talked to him. You think you could really look at someone and burn a hole through them? Probably not. Maybe if you were writing a superhero story. But in this sense, it sure seems like they're just trying to show things are very angry in the story. The big idea of all of this is that the author uses figurative language to help set the tone for the story. They want you to know which emotion they're trying to show. So when you find figurative language, be on the lookout for the author's meaning. What are they trying to show you with that figurative language? And what is their tone? How do they want you to feel about the story? Let's look at this first example. As we're reading, we're going to be on the hunt for figurative language. We're going to be asking ourselves, what does the author want us to see, and what is the tone? Gabby walked down the shore and sat in the wet sand. The waves slapped at her bare feet. She sighed and watched as they went in and out. Usually on her birthday, her family made her a cake and drew her homemade cards. This year, there was none of those things. Today, she was a ghost. All right, there were a couple things that I thought, wait, that's not really happening. This last one we just read, today she was a ghost. Maybe if I was reading the whole story and it was about a girl who turned into a ghost, then I might say, nope, the author really meant that. But I don't have any evidence of that. Everything else feels normal. I don't think she really is a ghost. I think the author's using a metaphor. The author wants to show us that she feels like a ghost. The other thing I saw in here was some personification. The waves slapped at her bare feet. Slapped at her feet. That doesn't seem very nice. That seems like she's upset. When something's slapping at you, I don't picture like a gentleness or a happiness. Slapping seems kind of unhappy. She was a ghost. The waves are slapping at her feet. And then if we look at the plot, we can see she seems like she's by herself and her family forgot her birthday. What tone do you think the author wants us to have? Her family forgot her birthday, the waves are slapping at her feet, and the metaphor is today she was a ghost. I would say the tone of this one is sad. You could even get fancy and call it melancholy. This is kind of a bummer tone. The author wants to show us a scene that is sad. Let's look at another one. What does the author want us to see? What is the tone? The crowd around him clapped and shouted, bouncing like frogs at the thought of the candy about to come showering down. The piñata danced at the end of the string each time his father pulled. Daniel readied his blindfold, swung with the force of a wild bull, and as the crack of papier-mâché sounded, candy streamed out of the piñata, a waterfall of sweetness. There were some things in here that I don't think were real. I think were figurative. Let's go back to the beginning. The crowd around him clapped and shouted. Could that really happen? Yeah, it sounds like he's about to hit a piñata. There's always a crowd clapping and shouting. Bouncing like frogs at the thought of the candy about to come showering down. Aha. They are not really bouncing. They're not really frogs. They're bouncing like frogs. What do I think of bouncing like frogs? That seems kind of happy, or maybe a little silly. The thought of candy about to come showering down. Candy doesn't really shower, but I can picture that must mean there's lots of candy. The piñata danced at the end of this. Ooh, piñatas can't dance. That's personification. But dancing is happy. That's more happy stuff. The piñata danced at the end of the string each time his father pulled. Daniel readied his blindfold, swung with the force of a wild bull. Ooh, swung with the force of a wild bull. Oh, he can't really have the force of a wild bull. That seems like hyperbole, but it's maybe showing that he's really excited. And as the crack of papier-mâché sounded, there's onomatopoeia. Candy streamed out of the piñata, a waterfall of sweetness. More metaphors. So I've got a waterfall of sweetness, people bouncing like frogs, the piñata dancing. All of these things make me feel really excited. I think the author is trying to show us a really excited scene. All of their figurative language shows me excitement. This is the strategy that you can use when you're reading. When you come across figurative language, always ask yourself, what does the author want me to see? And what is their tone?